Some stories hide in plain sight, waiting in the silence of forgotten photographs. This is one of them. A story that begins not with a birth or a death, but with the quiet click of a camera shutter at a stranger's funeral. It's a story about a woman who attended dozens of funerals over nearly 50 years and never seemed to age a single day. Our journey starts in the archives, where the past is preserved in silver, gelatin, and faded color prints. A place where history is meant to be organized, understood, but sometimes the archives reveal patterns that defy all logic. It began with a single photo, dated 1950. A somber gathering, faces etched with grief, and in the background, almost out of focus, stands a woman. She wears a simple black dress, a small hat with a delicate veil partially obscuring her face. Her expression is vacant, a stark contrast to the raw emotion surrounding her. She isn't looking at the casket or the grieving family. She's looking directly at the camera and at detail. But nothing more. Or so it seemed. The archivist, a man named Arthur Hayes, was digitizing collections from different states, different decades. A funeral in Cleveland, 1958. A burial in rural Texas, 1963. A service in San Francisco, 1971. The locations were unconnected. The families were strangers to one another. But as he scanned, photo after photo, a chilling familiarity began to surface. In the background of each solemn scene, there she was, the same woman. Black dress, empty expression, her gaze, cold and unwavering, always found the lens. This wasn't just a coincidence. This was an impossibility. How could one person be present at so many disparate moments of sorrow? Hayes pulled the files, searching for names, for any connection. He cross-referenced attendee lists, obituaries, newspaper clippings. The families who lost loved ones in these photos had never met, lived thousands of miles apart, and shared no common acquaintances. Yet, this mysterious woman was the one thread connecting them all, a silent witness to their private grief. Driven by a mix of professional curiosity and a growing sense of unease, Hayes began a new project. He gathered every funeral photograph where she appeared, dozens of them spanning from the early 1950s to the late 1980s. He carefully scanned each image, isolating her figure from the crowds of mourners. On his computer, he created a digital timeline, placing her face side by side, year after year. What he discovered was beyond belief. He decided to overlay the images, aligning the features of her face from a photo taken in 1955 with one from 1985. The lines matched perfectly. The structure of her jaw, the distance between her eyes, the shape of her lips, was identical. 30 years had passed. Yet the woman in the photographs showed no signs of aging. Not a single wrinkle, not a hint of gray in her dark hair. It was as if time itself had frozen for her, while the world around her continued its relentless march forward. Who was she? The search for an answer became an obsession. Hayes scoured census records, birth certificates, public directories, and Social Security databases. He searched for any record of a woman matching her description. The result was always the same. Nothing. It was as if she didn't exist outside of these photographs. No name, no address, no documents, no history, and most unnervingly, no obituary. For a woman who spent so much time at funerals, she seemed to have avoided one of her own. Hayes revisited the photographs, looking for clues he might have missed. He analyzed her behavior in each frame. She was a ghost at the feast of sorrow. She never cried. She was never seen speaking to other mourners. Her hands were always empty. She never held flowers, a prayer book, or a handkerchief. She never approached the casket to pay her respects. Her role was not one of participation, but of observation. In every photo, her posture was the same, rigid, almost unnaturally still. She stood apart from the main group, often near a tree or by the edge of the cemetery grounds, a solitary figure cloaked in black. But it was her eyes that were the most haunting element. They were always fixed on the camera, a direct and piercing stare that seemed to cut through the years, as if she knew she was being watched, documented. It wasn't a look of surprise or curiosity. It was a look of acknowledgement, cold and deliberate. As whispers of the archivist's discovery began to spread, theories emerged. Each tried to place this woman within a logical framework. Perhaps she was a professional mourner, a pleurreuse hired to add a sense of solemnity to funerals. But this practice had largely died out decades earlier, and it wouldn't explain her presence across so many different states or her unchanging appearance. Was she a photographer's assistant, always standing in the same spot to help frame the shot? No, she appeared in photos taken by numerous different photographers, many of whom were local freelancers hired for a single day. Could she have been a traveling nurse, a caregiver who had attended to the deceased in their final days? It was a plausible idea, but it couldn't account for the sheer number of funerals or the vast geographical distances between them. And none of these theories, not a single one, could explain the central, terrifying mystery: why she never aged. The woman in a photo from the Reagan era looked exactly the same as the woman in a photo from the Eisenhower administration. It defied reason. Then Hayes found the most disturbing photograph of all. It was taken in 1978 at a small, windswept cemetery in Oregon. The composition was standard for a funeral. The family huddled around the open grave, their backs to the camera, heads bowed as the coffin was lowered into the earth. The priest stood at the head of the grave, his hands clasped in prayer. Everyone's attention was focused on this final, somber act. Everyone except her. She stood on a small hillock in the background, slightly elevated above the rest. And while every other person in the frame was looking down at the coffin, her head was turned, her gaze locked directly with the camera lens. Her expression was, as always, unnervingly blank. It was in this photo that Hayes decided to zoom in to magnify her face as much as the film grain would allow. He focused on her eyes, dark and glassy. As the image sharpened, something came into view, a tiny, distorted reflection in the dark surface of her pupils. His blood ran cold. Reflected in her eyes was the unmistakable shape of the camera that took the picture. That itself wasn't unusual. But Hayes, a student of photographic history, recognized the model. It was a Voitiu Enider Vito B, a popular 35mm camera from the mid-1950s. The photo he was examining was taken in 1978. Camera technology had changed drastically in those 20-plus years. The photographer at this funeral would have almost certainly been using a more modern SLR camera. Yet the reflection in her eyes showed a camera that was 2 decades out of date. It was as if she was not just looking at the camera, but through it, reflecting a moment from a different time entirely. The last known photograph of the woman in black was taken in 1993, a funeral in a nondescript suburban cemetery. The fashion had changed. The cars in the background were modern. The quality of the color photograph was sharper. But there she was, standing by a stone wall, the same black dress, the same hat, the same ageless face that had been staring out from photographs since 1950. After that, she vanished. Archivists and amateur sleuths have searched countless funeral photos from the mid-90s onward. She is never seen again. 5 decades. Dozens of funerals. A woman who left no trace except for her haunting presence in the background of other people's grief. She was a constant in a world of change, a fixed point in the turning wheel of life and death. To this day, no one knows who she was. No one knows why she was there. Was she a phantom, a time traveler, or something else entirely? Something for which we have no name. Funerals are meant to mark endings. They are rituals of closure, of final farewell. But for the woman in black, they seemed to be something else. Looking back at the long, silent timeline of her appearances, one gets the chilling feeling that for her, these funerals weren't endings at all. For her, they looked like returns. Each appearance was a confirmation that she was still here, unchanging, watching us live and die, her own story forever out of reach. Her secret remains buried in the emulsion of old film, her identity lost to the ages, her stare forever locked on us, the viewers, from across the chasm of time. Thanks for watching. If this story left you with questions, you're not alone. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the unexplained. What do you think her story is? Let us know in the comments below. Stay curious.